Is it really low motivation, or is it just kind of a fear of failure or
Hmm.
perceived failure
Hmm.
or, possibility of failure? But yes, getting started can be hard. And so there's tricks and there's all kinds of things, and some things work for some people. And, one thing I say is just keep trying. And with ADHD, something may work and then it may not work. And then you try something else or you come back to it later.
Yeah, so of course my mind goes here, but I'm wondering, okay, so these are some known challenges, better known now that we've kind of highlighted them. Thank you for that. So these are known challenges. What can I do as a therapist to help problem solve, to help, from a strength-based perspective, if a client is struggling with thoughts of shame, self-doubt, a lot of stinking thinking, automatic negative thoughts, why can't I can never seem to get things done. Why can't I just get up and do the dishes, for crying out loud? Like, I've been sitting on this couch and I just can't seem to get myself up. It's a simple thing, or the laundry or whatever it is. Or if you're a student, if you're having trouble like diving into your homework, you're 20 assignments deep. Really, they're not
Mhm.
that hard if I just do them, right? If they're struggling with that, how as therapists can we help empower them? Like, what advice, what practical or helpful advice can we really give?
I think if you can do it with them, look at those
Mm.
thoughts. Like, you're saying this about yourself. Can we look at it? You're not. Do you really think you're stupid because you can't do the dishes? Um, is there another way of looking at that? There's different ways to kind of bring yourself to do it. It's possible, especially if there's a student living in the house, maybe they can have a conversation with their parents about realignment of chores. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
dishes is that thing they just don't want to do, but they could swap out with somebody else. Maybe an
Mm.
understanding that even mom and dad or whoever they're living with, adults, have probably divided things up. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's a different way of dividing things up. What do you either like to do or not hate so much to do? You know, what would you willing to do if somebody else is willing to do the dishes? What are you willing to do? Because we all have to do something.
I love
Uh,
that. I love that. Absolutely. And I find myself talking to a lot of, especially when I'm working with teenagers, now that I'm at a high school and all, I find myself helping them kind of work on the dialogue with their parents or getting, exploring the patterns of conflict around the the negative feedback they feel from their parents and leads to things like shame and conflict around chores, especially as they're already feeling overwhelmed maybe with all of their homework, and how we can get ahead of those things. So I'll have them like, how can you show that you're being proactive? This is what your parent is going to come at you with. How can we be proactive about showing them that you've thought through how you're going to attack your homework, how you're going to prioritize, how you're going to structure your chores around your homework? And if you show them a plan or even tape it on the fridge, it becomes an easy reference point, right? To then show to them, hey, or start a conversation. So I have these responsibilities and I have these responsibilities. Something's going to have to give, or, these have deadlines. What is it reasonable for me to do the dishes on after I do my homework? Or maybe I clean the kitchen on Saturdays instead of Tuesdays, right? Like you were saying, kind of like a reassignment of tasks, or even sounds like having a constructive conversation about how we address them, right? Or what the plan is to show that we're being
yes.
proactive.
And you could also, depending on the client, begin to have conversations where they become much more aware of what their strengths are and what their needs are, and coaching them and role playing to be able to go up to somebody else, whether it's a parent or a teacher or a friend, and say, I struggle with this. I
Mm.
could use your help this way, or I could
Mm-hmm.
appreciate use your understanding for this. And that's hard. That's hard for anyone to do. So it takes some self-reflection and probably
Mm-hmm.
some real practicing. Sometimes I would do that with students. Let's role play you going up to the teacher, because the way you want to say it is just not going to fly, not appropriate. So let's
Mm-hmm.
let's work through that. Because these are life skills. Because
Right.
whether you're talking
Right.
about a teenager or you're talking about a 40-year-old, that the rest of your life, all your relationships will be better if you have this self knowledge, and if you can play with different strategies and see what works for you in the time.
Yeah, and that's what we call it, the art of therapy, right? Because it is very much trying to find a foothold, right, on how we can the better
Yeah.
we understand the unique challenges that somebody's dealing with, be that depression or anxiety, or in this case ADHD. When we know once we know what we're looking at, right, then we can start to
Right.
strategize like experiments. Right? There's no guarantees, but we can try this,
Mhm.
try that, try DSD, right? Do something different.
Yeah. And it's all a spectrum and we're all different. And just
Mm-hmm.
because, your sister-in-law or your nephew or whoever has ADHD and does this and it works doesn't mean it's going to work for somebody
Mm-hmm.
else. Or if I'm comparing myself to somebody else, well, they do this and I can't do it. We're all different. That's why there's a spectrum, and just more of that understanding and trying, not being afraid to try, not being afraid to fail, looking at it as an experiment. That's something that I've been working on more lately is let's try an experiment. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see. It takes
Right.
some of that pressure off, some of that negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, One strategy you were talking about, like getting things done and the chores and the homework and everything is, do you know about the Pomodoro method? Have you heard of
Oh, I
this?
love that. But maybe our audience
Yes.
isn't familiar, so maybe you can share. It's
Okay.
one of my favorite
So it
recommendations.
means tomato. So in essence, it's this theory that you work for a set of time, say 25 minutes is common, and then you take a 5-minute break. Um, and I like it for so many reasons and in so many different ways. For ADHD, it gets me started because you can probably do anything for 25 minutes. It makes me take a break because that's another thing with people with ADHD, especially if you're hyper focusing on something. 3, 4 hours have gone by and you haven't eaten and you haven't drunk any water and you
Mm-hmm.
haven't moved your body. So you get a little break. I will use it in different ways. One way is if I have something I know it's going to take a long time. The other day, I have, as you might know, imagine many unread emails. And so I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 25 minutes and I'm going to go through emails for 25 minutes. I'm not going to be done, but I'm just going to do it. And then I'm going to stop and then I'm going to take a break. So
Mm.
when you have a bigger task and you just want to do a chunk of it, it's good. It can also be good to, I need to fold these towels. I'm going to take one Pomodoro, I'm going to take 25 minutes and I'm just going to fold the towels. Okay.